Hello everybody! Welcome to Skyward Sword 80% Tournament! Losers Bracket Round 5. Deesh vs Lepelog. Broadcasting on ZeldaSpeedRuns. And commentating for us today we have Indy Kenobi and Floha258. Say hello everybody!
Hi.
Hello. Welcome, and we're really excited for this losers finals race between Lepelog and Deesh. Winner gets to take on KitKat for the Grand Championship. Loser gets to watch that race.
Yeah, both have taken out some interesting opponents. Were definitely some surprises, and yeah, as you can see, both are running on English, meaning both have won over the Japanese language. Yeah, so that is going to be interesting. So the finals will definitely be English versus Japanese. So yeah, I hope you are excited for that.
Yeah, we got two talented runners here regardless of version, but we do get to have no difference between text speed in this race. So they'll be going straight up based on their skill. And we're just about ready to go here.
Huh, interesting. I never realized that there's a difference on the keyboard between English, between PAL and North American version. Well,
yeah, the extra characters are different between the two versions.
Yeah. All right, so we're getting started. And yeah, you can see both are playing in hero mode. They can skip cutscenes, which makes this run a lot faster, skipping cutscenes, because especially on English there are a lot of cutscenes, probably about an hour at least in the any percent route.
It is indeed quite a benefit to be able to skip cutscenes no matter what language you're playing on. You'll notice neither of our runners decided to talk to Fledge. They're going to be using a different flag and a different file setup for the log during Back in Time. Both runners will probably be using the safe Skyloft route to avoid having to do the 2-frame cutscene skip 8 minutes in. But one of them could still surprise us. We'll see.
So yeah, at the beginning we've got a lot of text here. We've got the instructor telling us what we need to know, but we all basically know that. So we just run straight to Zelda, who tells us that our Loftwing, oh well, she does not tell us, but she rather pushes us off the cliff, and then she realizes that our Loftwing is not there. But hey, we're not to blame Zelda, we are to find our Loftwing.
So they're about to do the Back in Time glitch, which involves dying and then choosing to continue after dying, but then choosing to reset immediately after continuing. So both Deesh and Lepelog have saved here, so they're going to be jumping off a nearby cliff to take fall damage 3 times, and then we'll be activating the Back in Time glitch. So the runners will be doing likely 2 things during this Back in Time glitch. The first is creating a corrupt file, where they will delete a file and then save during the deletion. And that will essentially create an empty file whose purpose is to die quickly. So they're going to be using that corrupt file to activate bit at least once. And then the second thing they're going to do is get the Goddess Sword during Back in Time. And that would be our first example of a reverse bit magic trick. And the basic idea of reverse bit magic is during Back in Time, you can manipulate flags both with the files themselves and with the Skyloft environment that you're in. And so we're going to be starting a file and then using something in Skyloft to change a flag during the fade out as that file loads. And that will essentially place that flag onto our file. And by changing the flags, we can commit that flag to memory. So we're going to be using that here to get the Goddess Sword.
So What you also just saw is that lepelog actually made use of the home menu, while Deesh made use of the physical reset button on his Wii. That is gonna give a slight advantage to Deesh every time they're doing back in time, because lepelog is, as far as I know, playing on a Wii U, which does not have a physical reset button. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think the difference is about 2 seconds each time you reset, and we're going to be activating back in time somewhere around 20 times during this run, so it'll be a significant advantage for Deesh overall.
Yeah, certainly. So now you see that both have gotten the goddess sword in back in time now. And when they start the file, you realize that basically nothing has happened. That is because we need to commit this flag, basically, and we also need to reload the area, which is done by going into this cutscene trigger. And after that, you will realize that Deesh now has the Sword of the Gods. So another thing you will realize is that both runners are have to manage their stamina wheel quite a lot, because this run is heavily movement based. You see that most of the runners will probably go deplete the stamina wheel as much as they can, and then wait till it has refilled 1/4, because the last quarter only depletes half as fast as the other 3/4, but it refills at the same speed, which is why usually you only use that half quarter to run.
Yeah, that's the best way to move over long distances. If you have shorter distances, you want to roll as much as possible, because rolling saves about a frame every time you do it. But it really depends on how much of a distance you have to run, what stamina fruits are available, and things like that. Stamina management is pretty difficult to get used to, but it's really something that separates the better runners from the rest. Having good movement can really add up over the course of a 2.5-hour run. So we're getting ready to rescue the Loftwing. We'll be going into the Loftwing tutorial right after that, which is important because it's one of the few layers of the sky for which we will not crash during back in time. And so we're actually going to want to save a file and copy it over right after this Loftwing tutorial. And so that's what we're going to use the corrupt file for, to save at the prompt, activate back in time, and then copy a file during back in time. And we can combine that with a save so that we can also skip the sailcloth at the same time.
Yeah, so I hope you really like this tutorial, because you're gonna see it more times.
Several times, yes.
Yeah. So this tutorial is a great auto-scroller where basically nothing is happening.
Different runners will do different things during this tutorial. Some will try to hit Zelda on her Loftwing as she's flying around. Some will fly over to Skyloft so you can see an invisible wall. It really depends. So Deesh is getting out of the cutscene first. He'll be saving and quitting, and then using the corrupt file to activate back in time. And you'll see how as soon as that corrupt file loads, you will immediately die. We're going to be using 2 We're going to be doing two things during this back in time. Well, three things. The first thing is copying the file, like I mentioned earlier. We're also going to be saving file 1 at the Upper Academy statue. That means we'll spawn there when we start file 1. But then we're also going to need to set a flag on our file for later on in the run. We need a flag that's associated to the practice sword in order to do a couple of reverse bit magic tricks later on. And so when we save at the Upper Academy statue, that's when we're going to copy our file over. But then we won't start right away. We'll head to the sparring hall to RBM the flag we need with the practice sword.
Yeah.
This particular one... Sorry, go ahead.
While this would theoretically give us the practice sword if we wouldn't have the goddess sword already, we are certainly not interested in the item of the practice sword. What we are interested is only the flag of the practice sword. Or rather, not the flag of the practice sword, but the flag that triggers the Shiga Stone cutscene right when you leave the sparring hall.
The sequence of opening files here is actually pretty important because if you get it wrong, you'll actually crash your console. So it looks like Deesh got through just fine, and lepelog is looking good as well. So both runners made it through without incident.
All right.
Deesh has opened up a little bit of a lead thanks to some pretty good movement.
What you also saw the runners do, especially when they entered now the goddess statue here, is that they are gonna, how we call it, they see up in the loading zone, which is basically just going into the ego perspective, which saves a few frames, or sometimes even a few seconds.
It's another one of those little movement techniques that adds up over the course of the run, but essentially when you go through a loading zone, the game keeps track of how much momentum you had as you were going through it and plays a cutscene on the other side to represent that momentum. So if you sprint through a loading zone, there'll be a cutscene on the other side of Link sprinting. If you're jogging, there'll be a cutscene of him jogging, but if you have no momentum, there won't be any cutscene at all. And so if you kill your momentum going into most loading zones, you'll be able to gain control of Link a little bit faster than you would otherwise. Fledge here is going to give us the adventure pouch. We need this for one thing and one thing only. We need a bottle in order to pick up some water later on. If we could skip that bottle, we could skip this adventure pouch.
I would save some. I would save us some time on the English version again.
Yeah, English version, it would definitely save time. Japanese, it probably wouldn't because the text is just so much faster.
I think in a Japanese version, it's just faster to go through the cutscenes.
It's kind of a running theme where some tricks are worth doing on English because they skip text boxes, and the text boxes are longer on English, whereas the Japanese version would not do the trick because the text boxes are fast enough that it doesn't actually help.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting.
Both runners have passed by Owlin here, so neither runner is going to be getting the wooden shield. It's slower to get the wooden shield because there are very few fights which we actually would get a benefit from it. But it does make a couple of the endgame fights a little bit trickier. So we'll see how that goes for our runners as we get towards the end.
So Deesh still has a small lead here, but that doesn't mean anything basically, because we've got some tricks coming up later on, where if you miss them one, then you're gonna lose a lot of time, which gives your opponent a lot of time to catch up. So
yeah,
just because Deesh has a small lead here doesn't mean anything yet.
Skyward Sword has become the speedrun where you lose minutes for mistakes instead of seconds. It used to kind of be the other way around. It's just very movement and execution based. And there were a couple places where you could lose a lot of time, but not many. But now, if you do one false move during some of these back in times we're going to be doing, you can lose the whole thing and have to start over. So this is a good time to talk about health management a little bit. This is the other sort of important thing as you're running this game. You want to keep your health as low as possible while not actually dying. So back in time, as you've seen, requires dying, and we are going to want to use back in time as freely as possible. And so that requires being on low health. So most of the time, the runners are going to want to be on 2 hearts. Since we're playing in hero mode, most things do 2 hearts of damage, so 2 hearts is a good range for activating back in time.
Yeah. Another thing is, you can't actually cancel the fall damage when falling down here, because we did not collect the Cloth, which stops our fall and cancels our fall damage. So that means usually you would need to take 4 hearts of damage here, which of course then you don't want to get hit by the Deku Babas above. But what you can do is on the second jump you can just side hop to the left, which is just barely enough height so that Link does not get any fall damage from. So if you get hit by 1 Deku Baba, you're still fine. Then you can do the side hop strat. However, if you get hit by a second Deku Baba, then you pretty much have to die and reset your health.
Either die or run a long way around the spiral.
Yeah.
All right, so Deesh is moving into the sealed temple. We're going to pick up our first and only bottle here, which comes with a free revitalizing potion. The potion will come in handy a little later on to increase our health right before we would need to take damage, so we'll mention that when we get there. But for pretty much the rest of this, we're going to be looking at 2 hearts and a lot of low health beeps.
Yeah.
When you run this game long enough, you stop hearing the low health beep.
So let's see if both can get first try beacon. A very hard trick.
Yeah, so Impa's going to ask you to place a beacon on your map here as sort of a tutorial for how to use them. You can do it without zooming in, but it's pretty precise if you don't zoom in. And if you miss it, there's a lot of text boxes from Impa scolding you for not being good at placing beacons and asking you to try again. So the safer thing is to zoom in, but we'll see what our runners do.
Another thing of the glory of English text.
Yeah, it's very risky to do in English because it's like 15 or 20 seconds worth of extra text. I would expect... Well, Deesh did not zoom in and he made it.
But he did it.
Showing off a little there.
I think lepelog is probably gonna zoom in.
I zoom in. Some risks are not worth the reward.
Yeah, lepelog is zooming in. Okay. However, none of them missed, which is pretty good.
So Deesh is going to be coming up on a Bokoblin fight here, and there's a very important property of hero mode, which we're going to be using during the first part of this run. We start with our upgraded Skyward Strike from normal mode, which means the Skyward Strike from our sword does 4 times damage as the sword itself right now. That means the Skyward Strike is enough to kill these Bokoblins in 1 hit. So we want to try and do some movement that gathers them together, and then...
Nice ornamental skull.
And then kills them. So Deesh got an ornamental skull to show off how long a text box that is for us. It's very kind of him. Unfortunately, it did waste about 8 seconds for him. Lepelog is not able to get the same
Having
fight.
some problems with the bokoblins.
It's not quite as simple as it works because you have to have them far enough away that they don't block the Skyward Strike, but close enough that they will actually get hit by it. So he didn't quite manage to turn around before trying his first Skyward Strike, but he managed to clean it up pretty well.
Important is that you actually do not hit them with the tip of your sword, because then the bokoblins only get the damage of the sword, which India already said is way lower than the damage of the Skyward Strike. So only if the Skyward Strike hits them, the bokoblins get killed. If we hit them with the sword, then they do not get killed.
Yeah, the sword damage overrides the Skyward Strike damage, unfortunately. So there'll be a couple more bokoblin fights here in Farron Woods where we use the Skyward Strike to kill them quickly. Deesh is first into the woods. He's maintaining his slight lead here. This segment of the game is the least glitchy segment you'll see. It's pretty much standard. You're just collecting the Kikwees so that you can get the slingshot from the Kikwee Elder. After this, it opens up quite a bit.
Yeah, the first half hour of the game is not very glitch heavy, but the rest remaining 2 hours, 1.5, are definitely more glitch heavy. A bit, yeah.
It's a bit glitchy.
A bit glitchy.
Yeah, we'll be using Back in Time to essentially write flags onto our file in any place where it'll be helpful. So as soon as we get to Deep Woods, there's a couple different glitches that we might see. And then after that, we're going to be doing a lot of bit stuff. A good time on this version for entering Skyview Temple is half an hour, or a little bit under half an hour.
So here we've got the Kikwee Hunt, and we're only doing this to get the slingshot, which we're only getting so that we can unlock the item wheel. Yeah, we could theoretically skip all of this, but unfortunately, if we do not get the slingshot, then the item wheel does not get unlocked. And if we collect the next B item, which would get added to our item wheel, the game would crash.
Yep, it is possible to skip the slingshot, and indeed the low percent speedrun does that. But it involves some pretty complicated back in times, which are slower to do than actually just going ahead and getting the slingshot. In particular, we need the whip later on. The whip saves a significant amount of time in its dungeon. And if we do not get the slingshot, we won't be able to use the whip. Everything else we could theoretically skip. It would possibly be slower in places, but the whip is the real sticking point. Fun little fact here, the Kikwees are all named after different types of tea. There's Machi here. Later on we'll see Ulu, we'll see Lopsa, we'll see Urla. There's the Kikwee Hermit, whose name is Yerbal, and the Kikwee Elder is named Buka. So this is kind of common for tribes in this game. Kikwees are named after tea. The Magmas are named after metals, such as lead or plats. The robots all have serial numbers. But then the denizens of Skyloft are usually named after birds, such as Oriel or Pero.
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting fact. You did not know about it yet.
The whip can be skipped, but if I recall correctly, it requires something like 9 RBMs and makes the dungeon 3 times as long as it would normally be.
Oh yeah, I remember Acer's low percent engine system. That is quite something.
Nice Bokoblin fight from Deesh there. Cleaned that up very
Each
nicely.
not going for lobster roll though.
I'm very disappointed. There's essentially a swag trick here where you have a single frame to roll into the tree as the cutscene would normally start, and that can knock the Kikwi out of the tree early and save like a second.
Yeah. However, if you don't get it, it loses a bunch of time.
This is like 3
lepelog
seconds.
actually going for it.
That was early, definitely early. But he went for it, so he wins the moral battle. Yeah, so his fight was a little more messy than Deesh's, but he, again, cleaned it up pretty nicely. So Deesh will be widening his lead just a little bit. We got 2 more Kikwis to go here before he can pick up the slingshot, and then we'll be heading to Deep Woods.
So the next Kikwi is a bit special in how he moves because he is surrounded by grass, and this is very special because if you cut the grass around him, then he always moves to where if there is still some grass left, then he moves. However, if you first cut the grass that does not surround him, and then cut the other grass, then he does not move. However, if you do cut the grass around him, and then he starts to move, and then you cut the grass while he's still moving, he first stops once he's reached his destination. Meaning, yeah, that is quite some time lost. So you want to see that you first cut the grass that does not surround him, and then cut the grass that actually surrounds him. That was some nice grass cutting from Lepo there.
Yep, both our runners had no trouble with that. We're pushing down this log here because we're going to need to come back this way a little bit later on. So it's worth the small detour to do that. Deesh is getting the last Kikwi. He'll be heading in to get his slingshot.
Runners are still pretty close though.
Honestly, the end game is volatile enough in this run that we're not really going to know who wins until the end.
Certainly. Single mistake in the end can cost you 10 minutes. And yeah, that is something you don't want to let happen.
Alright, so Deesh is going to have a pretty good slingshot time here. He's got a nice run going so far. lepelog's not too far behind him. As they pick up the slingshot here, we'll look ahead a little bit to Deep Woods because there's a few different tricks we could see here depending on how fortunate our runners are. The first one is called Extending Blow. And the way Extending Blow works is you need to knock up a Bokoblin back so that he bounces on the very edge of the ledge. And this puts the Bokoblin in sort of a special state. He is considered to be dead because he's over a void, and the game essentially kills any enemies which are over a void. But he is also still targetable. And so if you do a final blow on the Bokoblin in this state, the game will send you flying towards the coordinates 0, 0, 0 on whatever map you're on. So depending on the map you're on, this can either be helpful or harmful. It turns out it's really only useful in the run in Deep Woods because flying towards 0, 0, 0 sends you right to the front of Skyview Temple and skips the entirety of Deep Woods. Unfortunately, that trick is a little bit random because the distance a Bokoblin is knocked back is a little bit random. And there's either 3 or 4 distances that the Bokoblin can be knocked back. So you need to get the right knockback distance in order to successfully get an Extending Blow trick, along with having a somewhat precise setup. So it's a hard trick to get, and it's random on top of it. We'll see if our runners are able to get it. It saves about a minute or more, and so it's a big trick to get if you're successful.
Yeah, let's see how it's going. So, Deesh trying that cutscene skip with Phi. Doesn't look like it worked though.
Yeah, he missed the vine. There's a Phi text that appears after this vine, which you see right now. You can cancel it by calling Phi and getting a different Phi text, which is a little bit shorter instead. But his timing was a little off. It's a kind of tricky trick to do. And so he's allowed lepelog to catch up a little bit. All right, so Deesh is going in first. We'll see if he's able to get the extending blow. He's going to be using the second bokoblin you see to try the trick. The first one's not really close enough to the ledge.
However, you want to stun the first bokoblin, so he does not alarm the other bokoblins, so they don't go off position how you want it.
The first one has a horn, so he can summon the others to him.
Alright, let's see.
Set up.
Nope.
No. The bokoblin was not knocked back far enough. He didn't go far enough. So Deesh is going to the back.
If lepelog actually gets it. Okay, lepelog is not going for it apparently.
Yeah, it looks like he's skipping it. So the backup strat is called Cube Warp. There's a Goddess Cube up on the left-hand ledge here. And if you manipulate this bokoblin into the right position and use a Skyward Strike at the right time, you can hit that Goddess Cube. And because it's the first one, there's a cutscene associated to it, and it warps you up on top of that ledge. So Deesh was able to get that. Lepelog is going to have to try and set up again. You can hit this bokoblin 3 times before you run out of health. Deesh is going to be doing a trick called the Phi text skip.
Get the Phi skip.
He was not able to get that.
Lepelog has to go the walk of shame.
And he's got to go the long way around here, unfortunately. Deesh missed the text
however,
skip.
not getting the Phi skip there, which loses also a bunch of time again. Yeah. However, due to lepelog going the fast way, he still has he's still in the lead. Now, if lepelog actually gets the Phi text skip, they're mostly synced again. Not. They still have the lead.
Missing Cube Warp is a bigger mistake than missing the text skip, for sure.
Yeah.
So Deesh, I think, will widen his lead a little bit. Lepelog can sort of mitigate the damage by getting the Phi text skip that Deesh missed. But we'll see if he's able to do that. Meanwhile, Deesh will be activating back in time off of a keys here at the beginning.
Oh, lepelog actually gets it.
Yep, so he's going to be not too far behind Deesh here. Maybe about 30 seconds behind. Deesh is going to be doing a trick called a bit warp by activating back in time and then going to a statue and saving and starting at the same time. You can apply the coordinates from back in time to the file that you're saved on. And so we're going to use the coordinates near the Upper Academy statue to warp to a different area of Skyview Temple, which actually is in the hub room at the end of the temple. And by doing this in the right way, we are able to skip both small keys in Skyview Temple, which saves a very big chunk of time.
Yeah. Also, another thing, another important thing here is to get the keys in the position so that you can get him somewhat right. Oh.
And Deesh has failed the bit warp. So he's going to have to reset back to the beginning of the file.
Wait. Deesh is not forfeiting now, is he? So lepelog is now performing the bit warp, which of course gives him a lead if Deesh is still going. I don't know.
Deesh is saying that his file wasn't saved in Skyview. If that's true, if for whatever reason the Skyview save wasn't done, that means the back in time he just did in Skyview Temple has reverted his first file save back to before leaving Skyloft, which would be a 20-minute time loss.
That would definitely be a huge time loss.
It would be a huge time loss. If I was him, I'd keep going because it's early enough in the run that you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah. However, it seems like Deesh is done already.
If he is indeed done, then lepelog just has to finish the run in order to make it to winners finals. That's all he has to do.
I mean, I've definitely seen some forfeits in this tournament already. That is, I think, definitely the earliest forfeit I've seen.
It's a really unfortunate mistake because it's
that is certainly
it's one of those little like brain farts. You know, sometimes you get on autopilot and you don't even realize you made a mistake until you did it.
All right, GG.
So, you know, it's definitely a big time loss. And it's hard to come back mentally from that. You know, not even just in terms of the race, but it's just really disheartening to have something like that happen.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so...
Oh, yeah.
lepelog's dealing with Stalfos.
Now has to finish the run. And now we get to fight the Stalfos in here.
The Stalfos fight is one of the fights where it would be beneficial to have a shield, but only by a few seconds. And lepelog got through that fight without incident to get the beetle. The beetle is used in two places. One is here in Skyloft to get a red rupee, which is just setting up a flag for some reverse bit magics later. The other time is in the front of Earth Temple to break a rope that lowers a drawbridge. The one in Earth Temple is skippable. You're able to use a Skyward strike and angle it to hit a keys so that it continues through the keys and hits the rope. However, this has never been done, as far as I know, RTA. It's TAS only, pretty much. There's actually a second way to skip the use of the beetle in Earth Temple involving a bit warp using Farron back in time, but that's slower than actually getting the beetle. So we get the beetle to avoid having to worry about that. It also lets us set up these flags on the Skyview file. Although, did lepelog get the rupee? I don't know if he did.
Actually, now that he's...
Also, bonking on the statue there is probably going to make it so that when he loads this file later on... Okay, I don't know what lepelog is doing anymore. It looks like he's not going to be doing the Girhim RBM.
Okay, that is interesting. Apparently he's gonna be fighting Girahim. I mean, sure. I haven't seen that fight in quite some time.
Well, it's not a big difference. So what we're talking about here is there's a reverse bit magic which can skip the Girahim fight. That doesn't in and of itself save much time. But we usually copy a file here that we've set up with certain flags in Skyview. And lepelog has not yet done that, even though he did save at the boss statue.
Oh, looks like he's doing it a little bit different here. Okay, now he's getting the rupee.
He's realized he forgot the rupee, that's what it is.
Now he's getting the rupee. Killing the Bokoblin. Very important.
So like I said, this rupee we're getting here is to set a specific flag for a reverse bit magic trick later. And usually during that Gearheim skip, we copy the file that has all those flags to a different slot so that we have access to it later. Because he forgot the rupee, he must have realized that before trying to do the trick. So he intentionally didn't save, he got the boss key, and he went back to get the rupee, and now he's going to save and probably do the Gearheim skip now.
I think right now it actually would have been faster since he already got the boss key anyways. Just fighting in the middle of the hub room again.
He may just be copying the file.
Yeah.
Now
okay.
he's gonna do the Gearheim skip RBM.
He's doing the RBM.
Yeah. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. The Gearheim fight is a little bit random. He has some dart attacks where he's not vulnerable. And so if you get too many dart attacks, even if you do the fight correctly, right, don't make any mistakes, it can still be slower than doing this skip.
By the way,
he also has to copy the file anyway. So you can see him doing that here.
Yeah.
So I mean this is fine.
I mean, he's got all the time in the world now.
Yeah, in the race context, he certainly does.
Yeah, he just needs to finish the run. Otherwise, there's not much that needs to be done anymore.
He's got to commit the flag, which I think he's just going to do by opening the boss door. That should be enough. Because having the boss door, so the way this works is we're modifying scene flags inside Skyview. And so when we write a scene flag in, we have to be able to commit the scene flag, right? We have to make a change to the scene flags in order to sort of make the change we made during Back in Time be permanent.
Alright. Now he just runs through the boss door, and I guess now would probably be a good time to switch the layout.
Alright, and Lepelog has made it through Skyview Temple without issue here. If I remember right, Lepelog also had an opponent forfeit earlier in his tournament run.
Yeah, I think
his match was Pika.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I think in his match, yes. I think in his match against Pika. Huh.
It's been an interesting tournament, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Okay,
All right,
give me a moment, everybody. Sorry to interrupt. I'm going to switch screens real fast. We'll go back for just a second.
While that's happening, I'm going to describe what Lepelog's going to be doing next. This is a very important trick called Early Elden Pillar. And we're going to be using reverse bit magic to open the Elden Pillar on our second file. This is our early game file, which was saved right after the Loftwing tutorial. So it's a file that has one of the layers in the sky that will allow us to access the sky during Back in Time. By putting the Elden Pillar on this file, one of the properties of the Loftwing tutorial is that you can't run to... you can't fly anywhere you like in the sky. There are boundaries that are put in place so that you can only reach certain areas. But the Elden Pillar happens to be within those boundaries. So by putting the Elden Pillar on our early game file with the right sky layer, we'll be able to fly to the Elden Pillar during Back in Time, which will, of course, put us in Farron, because the game will interpret reaching the Elden Pillar as the first time we're heading to the surface, and that automatically sends us to Farron no matter what pillar we enter. So to do this, we need to collect a rupee of some sort with our first file selected. That actually loads the ruby tablet we just got into Back in Time. Then we need to make our way to the Upper Academy statue, where we will be saving so that we can restart there after we do this trick. But we're also going to select the statue with file 3 because that will let us open the pillar sooner when we go inside the goddess statue. So I think lepelog set everything up correctly now. Hopefully the video is back up.
Now it's only up to place the pillar, to place the tablet, and actually start the file at the right time.
So it's actually very important that he puts this on file 2 right now. If he puts it on a different file and saves, he's essentially lost, he's already placed the ruby tablet on that file. And so he would not be able to put the Elden pillar onto file 2, and that pretty much kills the run because you can't access Farron back in time anymore. The backup, if there is one, would probably be to copy our file 3 from Skyview back over to file 1 and re-beat Skyview Temple and try the trick again. But that's
that
a
is what
significant
happened.
time loss.
That is exactly what happened in my race against you.
Yeah, that was what felled you in our race.
Yeah, which also resulted in a forfeit.
Yeah, two of the last 4 races in this tournament have been forfeits.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
Skyward
It does
Sword
reflect.
is not such an easy game. I mean,
it does reflect how
not
it's
a hard
changed.
game. Yeah.
Yeah, it reflects how it changed. It's changed since the discovery of reverse bit magic. You know, it used to be a run where you couldn't really soft lock, but it was really long. Now it's much, much shorter with this trick, but there are so many different ways that you can, mess up your files or things like that because you're manipulating memory through back in time. And anytime you start manipulating memory in a game, you can start messing things up pretty bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Deesh has unfortunately forfeited, which means as long as lepelog finishes his run, he'll be going to winners, or grand finals rather, to face KitKat.
Yeah, time for lepelog to get his revenge against KitKat.
Yeah, that will also be a rematch.
Will he get his revenge? Or will...
It's a rematch of winners finals, right? Between KitKat and lepelog, I think. I think that was KitKat's last match. He beat lepelog, and then he's been waiting.
Yes, exactly.
He's been waiting all this time for losers bracket to finish up. And we're
Yeah.
almost there now. We've almost finished up our losers bracket.
Now it's time for lepelog again. If
what happens if
doesn't
lepelog
finish,
doesn't
then
finish?
Deesh and Lepelog need to reschedule their match. Yeah, then Lepelog and Deesh need to reschedule their match and do it again.
All right, so we're going to be doing another bit warp here in the Elden Volcano. This one's a little bit neat because you have to be a little precise with your position because you're actually bit warping next to a goddess cube, and you need that goddess cube to force you underground so that you can fall through the floor and hit a loading zone underground. It is extremely likely that lepelog will finish this race. The most scary soft lock is
pretty unlikely that lepelog will not finish.
Yeah, so pretty much Floha and I are gonna chill out with you guys and watch this run for the next, hopefully a little under 2 hours. It'll be a good time.
Yeah.
Go grab a snack, grab a sandwich.
So time for the next bit warp. This, however, is a bit more precise. Because
looks like a pretty good position.
Yeah, we need to get under a goddess cube, which basically pushes us out of bounds. Which pushes us basically which lets us fall into the next loading zone, which is in this cave here, in the magma cave. So we can now just do this fight here and get the digging mitts.
Thankfully, it's a very large loading zone underground. You'll also notice that he took 4 hearts of damage from fall damage after spawning underground. That's why we use the revitalizing potion to survive that particular damage. This is also one of the last places where we're going to be using that upgraded Skyward Strike, and that one went very well for lepelog. This is losers finals. Winner takes on KitKat in grand finals at a time to be determined. Since Deesh has already forfeited, we just need lepelog to win to finish the race.
Alright, next big question is gonna be if lepelog is gonna get circle.
Circles is another swag strat that involves rolling into a cutscene at the correct angle so that Link starts running around in circles during the beginning of the cutscene.
Yeah. Doesn't save anything. Just...
If I remember right, it actually loses a frame because you like end up slightly further away from the statue.
Deesh unfortunately did not save when doing back in time in Skyview, which lost him about 20 minutes.
Yeah, he lost about 20 minutes and decided he didn't want to try and come back from that, which is understandable. That's a big time loss.
Getting such a big time loss, especially in the beginning, is especially mentally challenging. No circles.
Didn't even really go for it. He did lops a roll earlier, though, so we can forgive it. All right, we're going to be setting up for another reverse bit magic here. This one is going to skip collecting the key shards here in Elden Volcano to get into Earth Temple. So it's one of the first RBMs that involves nighttime Skyloft. Nighttime Skyloft is not as easy to access as it seems during back in time. We first need to be able to sleep in a bed, which is not too bad. The second thing is we need to be able to go outside at night, and that needs to be done with an early game file. For some reason, having a hero tunic file try to leave to nighttime back in time will crash. So that second file we have, file 2, is that early game file that has the right layer for back in time in the sky. It also will be able to enter Skyloft at night during back in time.
Yeah, I think the time where Deesh did not save there actually is probably one of the longest periods in the game where you do not save.
Yeah, because every time you do a back in time, you save first, right? That's always the first thing you do. And that, in fact, is what got Deesh, is that he didn't save. But we were saying at the time that first segment is the least glitchy part of the run, and it is indeed because of that we don't save in between the back in time we do on Skyloft and that save at the beginning of Skyview.
Nah, I don't think Lepe is going to forfeit.
Well,
Something
especially
big would have to happen there.
Especially knowing that his opponent has already forfeited, he's just going to finish the run. Even if it ends up being a not great run from his standards, he's going to finish. He's also a pretty steady runner, so I don't expect any issues from him along those lines. He did the RBM, now he's going to be just heading up to the temple to enter. Earth Temple itself is pretty tricky. There's a lot of little small tricks that can add up to a lot of time during the beginning. And then the boss fight, Scaldera, is very tricky as well.
A lot of runners don't like Earth Temple, including me.
Yeah, and me. I don't know many runners that do like Earth Temple. Unfortunately, we have to do it. It's not yet possible to skip Earth Temple.
Yeah, unfortunately. I mean, sure, he could just play the game normally. Nothing would stop him.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he could do no bit route from here if he wanted to.
Yeah.
I hope he doesn't, because that would take,
Yeah,
twice
that
as
would
long.
take some time. It would take
I mean,
at
you
least double the time we've estimated for this to take.
yeah, you could do a no-bit run in probably about 6 hours, maybe a little more than 6 hours. But given that we're only an hour into this, I think we're just gonna allow him to do the bit route. Just get it done. He could start doing all dungeons.
Yeah.
I know, but I mean, he hasn't set up that route correctly at all, so I don't think he can actually do it. But anyway, just saying. This is my favorite cutscene in Elden. It's the just saying cutscene.
I mean, he could just do normal or a casual all dungeons and then do Song of the Heroes skip.
True. One thing I can point out, since lepelog is running on the PAL version, there are essentially three. For speedrunning purposes, there are three versions of this game. There's the Japanese version, which has fast text and therefore is the fastest version. There's also, you can see that door was not locked as it looked like. He's in Earth Temple now. There's the English 1.0 version, which has an extra glitch in Ancient Cistern called Cistern Clip. And that glitch allows it to do a completely different route. Ooh, that's not so good.
That is a bit unfortunate.
It's not a terrible place to die.
Yeah, I mean, you only lose like, what, 30 seconds?
Well, it's one of those things where, since you're riding so close to the edge with your health management, once false move and you're dead. And so that was just a move where Link didn't quite jump far enough.
Yeah.
So yeah, we got some cutscenes we're skipping here using the Skyward Strike. And if Link's in the air and a cutscene tries to trigger, depending on the cutscene, you can cancel it. So these little drawbridge lowering cutscenes can be canceled using that technique.
Ooh, even got a nice little bridge skip there.
So yeah, as I was saying earlier, the English 1.0 version
Probably
because
wants
of
to take
that,
some damage from this Lizard boss.
yeah. I think he was trying to get him to hit him into the lava, and
Yeah,
Weasel Host wasn't behaving.
not very cooperative. Oh, now he needs to be careful to not get another damage there.
Yeah, the reason he's damaging down to 2 is that he wants to be on 2 hearts to do a reverse bit magic trick next.
Yeah, however, he needs to be careful. Well, that is...
His Z targeting was such that he canceled his momentum as he went to jump and it just fell into the lava. So we're back with take 3. He's been flipping his camera here each time to manipulate these lava platforms here so that he can jump onto this second one just barely without having to wait.
Yeah.
We're going to try and...
Now he wants to take the damage again. And this time around, at least he's got the boulder down already.
Okay.
He's got the boulder there already, so this time he does not have to bother with the boulder again.
Just making sure he gets his momentum for the jump there.
Yeah. All right, there we go. Now he can save. Yeah, this is pretty much Earth Temple in a nutshell.
This is the downside for lepelog, though, since Deesh has forfeited. We're all paying very close attention to his run, so we see every little mistake he makes.
Yeah.
All right, so he's going to be doing actually the same RBM he just did, entering Earth Temple. He's going to be going to the grave
However,
yard.
Since these scene flags are area specific, doing this in Earth Temple results in something completely different than in Elden Volcano, because in the Earth Temple map there is no entrance to the Earth Temple.
Yeah, essentially, it's the same scene flag, but it means something different in each area. So
Yeah.
in Elden Volcano, it was the flag for the Earth Temple door being open. In Earth Temple itself, it's the flag for the platforms to the back half of the dungeon being raised. There's actually a couple different flags which can do that. Ooh, that's a bad mistake from lepelog. There's starting the file
Ooh.
cancels out of the back in time before he reached the flag that he wanted to RBM, so he's going to have to do the whole RBM over again.
Yeah. Not a. I guess. Guess he's probably pretty annoyed at himself right now for these small time losses he's doing here and right now.
I mean, this Earth Temple has been rough so far, but
Yeah.
thankfully there's no pressure on him, right? You just do the
Yeah.
RBM again.
You can just do it again. There's nothing that can happen.
There is one additional aspect to this RBM that I should mention. The RBM, the flag we're RBMing here comes from the shed opening cutscene. But because of a flag that is set on our Earth Temple file, if we let the shed opening cutscene play out, we would also see the Thunderhead opening cutscene start playing. So by doing this RBM we're doing and starting as right before the shed cutscene starts, we actually get both flags. We get the RBM we need for Earth Temple to raise the platforms. We also get the Thunderhead open pretty much for free. And opening the Thunderhead is a pretty significant skip in and of itself. It skips having to fight Imprisoned One. It skips all that side quest stuff with Scrapper. So essentially, we're going to leave Earth Temple and go straight to the Thunderhead. And we basically get to do that for free because of the way we're doing this RBM.
Yeah. So now we just have to slash the gravestone, start a file. So next up we need the dungeon item, which are the bombs. However, for the commit to work, we also need to actually reload the area, which is quite convenient because we need to get the dungeon item anyway. We could theoretically actually skip the item, but first off, fighting Scaldera without bombs is just really a nuisance. And second of all, bombs are so important in this that in an actual any percent run, you kill yourself so often that it is not actually worth it to skip those bombs.
Yeah, it's actually worth doing bomb back skip on the English 1.0 version for a long chain of reasons emanating from Cistern Clip, that extra glitch. However, it's really hard to do. So it's immaterial for lepelog since he's running on the PAL version. Yeah. All right, he got the bomb bag without incident. That's good. So he's going to not quite death warp yet. There's some interesting death warp coding around here where if you death warp at this point, it doesn't spawn you back at the statue. It instead spawns you in this area. The game's essentially trying to force you to talk to this Magma to get bombs before you leave. So that's what we're doing here. We're going to pick up 5 bombs and then death warp. And that will reload the area, make the platform raising flag we RBM'd take effect, and allow lepelog to go directly to the end of the dungeon.
Yeah. We basically skipped the worst section of Earth Temple with this, which is the whole going around with the boulder, going all the way around just to get the pegs down. And if you're unlucky and you miss your peg skip, yeah, that is something we don't want to talk about. Those were some old times. So luckily, we don't need to do that anymore.
Yeah, it's about a minute and a half that section skips. Now the RBM takes a significant amount of time, but you know, it's worth it for skipping that boulder rolling section, and it's worth it for getting early Thunderhead for free.
Yeah. So now we here we see stutter sprinting. Basically, we can just if we manage our stamina well enough, we can make it up in one trip here. So what we basically need to do is we need to first trigger the wave of rocks, and then the game delays them so much that we can actually run up fast enough so that the next wave of rocks does not get in our way anymore.
And if you just try to run up the slope normally, you won't get enough distance. So it's sort of stuttering the sprinting that extends the distance you can run either on a slope like that or in sink sand in Nehru. And that's what allows us to go up that ramp in one go. Normally you have to sort of go around and use a bomb flower to blow up some rocks that are on the ramp to give you a stopping point halfway through. But we can skip that with judicious sprinting. All right, Scaldera. Scaldera's hitbox is bad. That's pretty much what you need to know about this fight. The goal of the fight will be to get a 3-cycle. We call this a tricycle fight. And essentially what we're trying to do is skip the section of the fight where he walks all the way up to the top and then rolls all the way back down. So to do that, he has certain health thresholds during the fight, which will trigger different behavior in his AI. And so we essentially want to keep his health below that final threshold, which causes him to walk all the way up the ramp and roll all the way back down, and then try to deal all that damage at once during the last cycle. So that's what lepelog is going to be trying to do here. There are a couple different strats for doing it, so we'll see which one he tries to use. We're filling up to 10 bombs at the start here because we're going to use at least 5 during this fight. And we want to have enough for the rest of the run as well.
Yeah. Here we've got another fight trigger. I don't know why.
She has to tell you very important information.
Yeah, this is probably one of the most random fight triggers in the game.
Well, she had to tell you that Zelda was held at that chain and that now she's gone, and we don't know why. Yeah. And then Girahim fills you in on the details, how Impa rescued Zelda from his evil clutches, and now he's very put out about it, so he's going to try and torture you. All right, so Back in Time works essentially by dying, choosing to continue, and then resetting right after continuing. And the way I like to think about it is that the continuing would give you control of Link again, but the resetting puts you on the title screen. And so doing them close enough like that puts you on the title screen and gives you control of Link. What you do there then varies depending on where you are in the run. You can either do bit warps, bit saves, you can do reverse bit magic, so it's different.
All right, so let's see how this tricycle goes. Or if it's gonna be a tricycle. What I wanted to say was how this Caldera will go.
He's got the first 2 phases down well. Now he has to do a Skyward Strike, a spin attack, and then a double hit Skyward Strike to finish it off. And that's the bad hitbox.
Yeah.
So
welcome to Caldera Fights in a nutshell.
Yeah, Scaldera has top and bottom rocks on both sides. And every time you feed him a bomb, it essentially blows up one of those sets of rocks. So there's 6 rocks total, and he's blown up 3 of them now. When only one of the top and bottom rocks is blown up on one side, his hitbox is very finicky. It can be very difficult to hit him. And so that's what happened to Lepelog there. He only had the bottom rocks open on the right side.
You go for an extra cycle there.
Yeah, he's got 2 extra cycles minimum here. He's still got to deal, let's see, significant amount of damage. Should be 2 Skyward Strikes would be finishing it. Showing off how that... I'm gonna go for the spin attack.
God. Yeah, just look at this. This is Caldera in a nutshell.
The more damaged he is, the more his eye kind of darts around behind the different sections. So yeah, it's... If you don't get the fight right, it can go very poorly.
Yeah. Alright. That was Trolldera.
That was unfortunately not a tricycle. I think it was a 6-wheeler, unfortunately. I don't even know what has 6 wheels. All right, so as we mentioned, we've managed to open up the Thunderhead while we've been in Earth Temple here, so that's where Lepelog will be heading next. We're going to pick up the Furor's Courage song, which we need in order to spawn the Farron trial in Farron Woods. And then we're going to head to Lanayru for a brief visit.
Yeah, we're basically visiting most areas in the game twice. That is no difference for Lanayru. However, the visits in Lanayru will be very short.
If you like time shifting as a mechanic, it does not appear in this run. I apologize.
Yeah. No time shifting.
In fact, this run spends more time in Batro's house than it does in Lanayru.
That is true.
Sad, but true. Yeah, that's our Scaldera tricycle animation, which we tend to post when a tricycle happens. I guess since we ended up with a 6 cycle, that's like 2 tricycles, right? So we'll just post it twice.
So you'd need to post it another time, Deesh.
All right, so Fi is telling us about Goddess Cubes because we hit that one back in Farron earlier. If you think that's kind of delayed, you're right, but it's because we didn't go back to the sky after Farron. We did a bit warp, or a bit save rather, to get back to Skyloft instead. So if you manage to get Extending Blow, you don't get that particular text box. And on English, it's about a 17-second text box. So that's sort of Extending Blow's last laugh if you're not able to get it. We do have to be a little careful flying here.
Yeah.
It's easy to get hit by these Skytails.
Well,
fact, I think Lepelog did that on purpose.
You get 4 hearts though. He had 4 hearts though, so...
The real risky part is actually going from Eldon to the Thunderhead, because there are tornadoes which can randomly pop up, which deal 2 hearts of damage. And so if you damage down to 2 hearts in Earth Temple, one of those tornadoes can just kill you, and it's very hard to avoid them. So I think Lepelog was on 4 hearts to avoid that possibility, and then intentionally took damage from the Skytail to go down to 2. Because, again, we're going to be doing a back in time here very shortly. It goes back to health management again. He's carefully managing his health to minimize his risk and still be able to do the back in times he needs to do as quickly as he can.
Alright. Does he get the cutscene skip? No.
There's a tiny little cutscene here that you're seeing, and if you side hop at the right time, you can skip it. But it's only like a 4-second thing.
Yeah. However, in this game, all the frames count. All the frames. Save the frames.
I'm bad at
Kill
that
the frames. Kill the frames. Save the animals. Save the kikwis. Kill the
Save the
frames. Save the
kikwis.
kikwis.
No. All right, so we're going to be doing a back in time here, but because of the cutscene we just watched, it's not possible to activate back in time in the Isle of Songs right now. So we're going to save inside and then leave and use the bombs to blow ourselves up outside. Bombs are very useful because they're the most efficient way of taking damage anywhere. So we're going to use them here to activate back in time.
Yeah.
There are still some faster ways to die, like jumping into lava is faster than blowing yourself up with a bomb. But bombs are very flexible because you can use them everywhere.
Yeah. The most faster deaths are just really situational.
All right, so this is going to be pretty similar to the early Elden Pillar that we saw earlier. We're going to be doing quote-unquote early Lanayru Pillar.
Yeah,
but we're gonna
however,
be
this
doing it-
time we're gonna apply it to our actual gameplay file and not to our early game file, which just results in opening which just results in the Lanayru pillar being open without us having to watch all the cutscenes that result in that.
We're basically gonna save a little bit of movement by doing this trick. That's what it saves, and the flying back from the Thunderhead. So he's doing his file manipulation in a very specific way here. You collect the rupee with file 1 to load the tablet into back in time. You check the statue with file 3 to be able to raise the pillar in the goddess statue. You save file 1 at the lower academy statue, so you'll spawn there after doing the trick. Everything he does here is done for a reason. And that's, I think, something that it's hard to see from a casual perspective. You know, it looks like you're just on the file screen doing random stuff. But each thing we do during these back in times is done for a specific reason. And that's one of the reasons this run can be so hard. If you sort of do something in the wrong spot, it can mess up the entire back in time.
Yeah, if you look at the guides that are on the ZSR Skyward Sword pages, they're actually very detailed, describing everything that you need to do in these bits. However, one might ask, of course, why do you need to do all this stuff? Most of the stuff just seems random, but it just is like that because flags work like that in this game.
Every time you change files during back in time, you load new flags in, and that can modify your environment. And so that's why we have to be very careful about what files we open when, what loading zones we enter with which files. All of that stuff affects the back in time state that we're in. All right, here's Lanayru. We're here at about an hour and 17 minutes. We'll be gone very soon.
Yeah, we won't be spending 5 minutes in here.
I hate this stupid chair.
So RBM is very useful, but it's also somewhat limited in a way in that most of the time you can only write one flag at a time because you have to write it while a file is loading. Turns out there's one particular flag in Lanayru which is very helpful, and so that's the flag we're going to write. But that flag requires us to talk to Batro during back in time. And so the Skyview file we set up earlier that has been copied into file 3 has a flag set up on it that will open the shed leading to Batro's house during back in time. This is what we call bit magic, using a flag on a file to specifically affect the Skyloft back in time environment.
Yeah, it's kind of it may kind of sound weird that that you first hear of reverse bit magic, and then you hear of actual bit magic. But it's just how stuff has been found. And reverse bit magic is mostly just more useful.
Think of bit magic as taking flags from your files and applying them to back in time. Reverse bit magic is taking flags from back in time and applying them to your files.
Yeah, so it's basically just a process in reverse. That's why they are called bit magic and reverse bit magic. Same goes for bit warps and reverse bit warps, actually, which we will see later on in the run. While bit warps take the coordinates you save at in back in time and applies them to the map you are saved on your file. Reverse bit warp takes the coordinates you are saved at on your file and applies them to the map that you're on in back in time. So yeah, here we've got the good old Bartro text.
This text is 29 seconds slower on English compared to Japanese. Fun fact about Batro. It's also why we spend more time in Batro's house here than we do in Lanayru itself, because Batro talks a lot.
Yeah.
So he's just got to start the file on the last text box here, which looks good. He's got to commit the flag, so he's going to shoot the poor statue behind him in the eye. Just with a slingshot, though, so it's okay. And now we're going to leave. We're done with Lanayru, almost.
Not quite yet.
Yeah, we might go back and visit once. Like right now.
A short meeting again.
So what that RBM did, which we'll see in a second here, Lanayru keeps track of which overworld bird statues you've visited using scene flags. And the scene flag we just saw after talking to Batro happens to correspond to the statue that's inside the Temple of Time on the other side of Lanayru. Now, if you remember this casually, there's a giant pile of rubble blocking the way into the Temple of Time, because that's also where the back entrance to Lanayru mining facility is, the third dungeon. And so by landing at this statue, we're on the other side of that rubble, and we're just going to pop into the back side of Lanayru mining facility here and then immediately leave. And because we're leaving through the exit of the mining facility, we get the goddess harp. We've now skipped the entirety of the first Lanayru visit and Lanayru mining facility, and we're gonna leave.
Yeah, and we're never gonna be seeing Lanayru again.
Yeah. Now you might ask, wait, aren't you supposed to come back to Lanayru for a second visit? And I say, yes, you are, but we're gonna skip that too. But we'll talk about that when we get there.
But even if you skip the second visit, aren't you supposed to come back to a third visit?
Yeah, that gets skipped also. And we'll talk about that when we get there. That one's actually coming up pretty soon here, I think, if I know the route that lepelog is using.
Yeah, I think that's actually coming up right now.
So we're going to do two back in time, sort of back to back here. The first one is going to skip the Ballad of the Goddess. It's one of the things we need to do in order to beat the game is raise the Gate of Time that exists in the Sealed Temple in Farron. And normally that requires learning the Ballad of the Goddess from Impa and going through the whole harp playing tutorial and so forth. It turns out that because we are saved at a save prompt, we can do a reverse bit warp into the cutscene, which raises the Gate of Time. It has to be saved at a save prompt in order to do this, because otherwise we will apply the coordinates from our file to the Sealed Temple map, and because the Sealed Temple is so small, we'll end up out of bounds and not be able to raise the Gate of Time. But doing this will allow us to skip learning how to play the harp from Impa, skip a lot of the text after that, and give us the Gate of Time in the sealed temple like we need. This is a particularly tricky Back in Time. You'll notice it's the first time we've gone to the sky during Back in Time using our early game file to load the right layer. We're now going to be maneuvering through Farron, but we have to essentially take a story flag from talking to Groose with us into the sealed temple. And so we're going to be doing some pretty special file manipulation in order to do that.
Yeah.
This log was lowered thanks to Bitmagic. File 3 has a flag which lowers that log. And so when we clear the splash screen, we load in the data from file 3 to Back in Time, and that flag takes effect and lowers the log for us. We're entering this area with file 1 because file 1 has the flag corresponding to Groose showing up here. So we're going to be selecting file 2 and then moving to the copy screen here. This is essentially going to allow us to take the story flag that says we've talked to Groose, keep it on file 2, and bring it with us into the sealed temple. Normally, you would talk to Groose like this right after getting the harp, and then you'd walk into the sealed temple in order to do the harp tutorial. But by carrying the right flag in, we'll be able to skip the harp tutorial part of this.
Very important here is that you don't actually copy over file 2 to file 1.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah.
That would lose about an hour.
Yeah.
All right, so we've done our reverse bit warp by starting the file as we sort of load this cutscene in. But because we're saved at the save prompt, we don't actually change our cutscenes. We keep we don't actually change our coordinates. We keep the default coordinates, which lets the cutscene play as normal. And now the Gate of Time is raised, and we're going to do the next Back in Time in the chain, which is the infamous Song of the Hero skip.
So yeah, this basically skips the whole Song of the Hero quest.
It's a very creative name, Song of the Hero skip.
Yeah. Yeah, which is basically just basically everything you do after you visit, after you've seen Zelda in the past. There she tells you something like, once you get the True Master Sword, she tells you like, yeah, but we need the.
You need to find the Triforce.
Yeah, you need to find the Triforce, and yeah, and there's all this fun stuff. To get to the Triforce, which is hidden somewhere, you need to get the Song of the Hero, and yeah, there is a whole story about this just to get the, just to learn that you need the Song of the Hero, and then how to get the Song of the Hero, which of course is split into 4 parts. And each part is linked to a task, which is just
it's a very long process.
Yeah.
And so this skip itself saves, depending on version, somewhere between an hour and 15 minutes to an hour and a half. Because it not only skips Song of the Hero, it also skips the Skyloft trial and the Skykeep dungeon. We're essentially going to be opening the door to the Horde fight in the past by RBMing in the correct little flag. So there was some fancy file manipulation on Skyloft in order to get the 7x02 flag onto file 1. Because that's going to be a flag we need to trigger a different cutscene when we get to Farron, which will give us the 7x04 flag, and that's the one that corresponds to opening the door to Hylia's realm in the past. Okay, so we're going to be doing a particular save here. Bit magic opens the door again. Very good for us. Now he's got to enter with file 2. The reason we enter with file 2 is to start a cutscene, which gives us enough time to open file 1 and start it before the other cutscene triggers. So you want to look for, after the file starts, Link sort of tenses up a little there. That means that the correct cutscene has triggered, and that should be a successful Song of the Hero skip.
All right. So we're not gonna know if that worked within the next 50 minutes.
We don't see the effects of that until the very end of the run, but
Yeah.
I'm pretty certain he got it.
Yeah. Same.
And so, as we said, we'll just, to drive this home a little bit, that skipped the third visit to Eldin, the third visit to Lanayru, the third visit to Farron. It skips the Goddess's Silent Realm. It skips Skykeep. It skips so much stuff, and it's just one flag. Yes, this was originally a 1v1 match, but our second runner has forfeited. He made a mistake with his saving that cost him 20 minutes at the beginning of the run, and he decided not to continue. Oh, harp cancel is a thing. So we're going to be playing the harp for the first and only time to open up this trial. It's actually possible to skip the cutscene where Fi sings her beautiful song by canceling our harp playing at the same time that we get the sort of final strum. So we'll see if Lepelog's able to do that.
Just died to a stupid macabre.
Nope.
He was early, and being early is the worst way to fail that trick because you have to do the whole harp playing again. If you're too late, you just have to watch the cutscene with Fi singing. So it actually loses about the same amount of time, but you only have to watch that cutscene once. If you're early a couple times on this trick, you might have to play the harp 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
It's a fairly precise trick, so...
No.
All right, so he was either late that time or just decided not to go for it.
What we hear Fi singing.
As far as songs go, right, the songs that you collect for the harp, this is not my favorite song. I like Din's Power, personally. That song will not appear in this run, unfortunately. So a fun fact about this trial, it's actually possible to do this Silent Realm during Back in Time. And for the 1.0 version of this game, it's actually faster to do so. But it's a pain in the neck to do it because if you change files while you're doing the trial, it erases the progress you've made in collecting tiers and makes it impossible to finish the trial. Thankfully, Lepelog won't have to deal with that. All he has to deal with is managing his stamina to grab the 15 tiers as fast as possible.
Yeah.
While avoiding the Watchers and the Guardians who will try to defeat him and smash his spirit. If you haven't seen these before, these are essentially the evolved version of the Twilight Realms in Twilight Princess. I say evolved because in my opinion they're better, but opinions can vary. Fi's explaining to us how this all works. I explained it much faster than she did,
Yeah.
unsurprisingly.
Well,
one of the benefits of doing the trial during Back in Time is if you have the right flag set up, you can skip most of this text. So Lepelog has turned left here, which means he's doing a slightly more risky start to this trial, where he's getting this tier next to this Guardian first. It saves a couple seconds, I think, in real time if you do this. It's more significantly faster for an individual level run, which goes by in-game time. But he got that first tier without trouble.
He did not jump in the waking water there.
Yeah, I noticed he actually did a front hop, which has a little less distance than just jumping off the ledge. So the front hop essentially makes sure that you don't end up in the waking water. The waking water there will alert the guardians to your presence, and they'll start trying to chase you down. There's also a cutscene involved where the guardians shows the guardians waking up and chasing you.
And speaking of cutscenes, you do want to avoid collecting any of those light fruits because they also just play another cutscene again.
Sometimes runners will pick up that one that lepelog just passed, because the first light tree fruit gives you a little cutscene that refills your stamina. So you can sort of use them to refill your stamina in a useful place. But it is a little bit faster to just skip them completely.
Oh, barely made it there.
Yeah, he made it in, but he's not going to make it out.
Yeah.
So he gets the cutscene, but that's not a bad place to get caught because it's a pretty straight shot to this next tier here. So there's not a lot of risk in getting caught there.
Yeah.
There are good places to get caught and bad places to get caught. And that was a perfectly fine place to get caught. Pretty good trial so far from lepelog. He's just got a couple tiers left here. In the slightly safer and slower strat, you would get these 2 tiers first. But the strat that lepelog's using gets them last instead.
Just the ones on the viewing platform, and that's it.
So this is going to give lepelog the water dragon scale, which we use for exactly one thing, and that's to enter Ancient Cistern.
It's great how many items we're collecting just for 1 or 2 things.
It is really, truly amazing. The beetle, the water dragon scale, the slingshot. Digging mitts we use for exactly one thing in this run, at least in this version of the route. But you know, you collect it if it's faster, right? And you skip it if it's slower. This water dragon scale is required, though. I don't think there's any way into Ancient Cistern without it at this point in time.
Who knows, maybe someday we will find a way that lets us jump slightly faster.
Maybe someday. Right now, the biggest skip in this game would be early Volcano Summit. Being able to reach the top of Elden Volcano and the Fire Sanctuary area without having to get the Fire Shield earrings. Right now, we don't have any way to do that, but if we could do that, we could skip another significant chunk of the game. All right, so we're doing another back in time here. This is going to give us 5 gratitude crystals. And you might say, well, why do we need 5 gratitude crystals? And I would say to you, well, we're going to go talk to Batro again. And he asked us to get gratitude crystals. So it would be rude to come back without any, really.
Yeah.
So we're going to save file here so that we can restart here once we're done with this trick. We're going to enter Rena's house here. Rena is the one who sort of starts the whole gratitude crystal side quest by telling you her daughter is missing. So we're going to tell her that we found her daughter during Back in Time, and she's going to give us crystals. And by starting our file at the right time, we can transfer those crystals onto our main file. All right, so we've got 5 gratitude crystals now.
Alright, now he's checking if he actually got him.
Double check to make sure it doesn't hurt, especially in a context like this. If you miss that for whatever reason, the timing is slightly tricky there because it's not as simple as just clearing a text box at the right time. If you miss it, you find out at the end of the next RBM and have to do both of them over again.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty significant time loss, so it doesn't hurt to check. And we're heading to Eldin. Now, you might notice that we haven't done Ancient Cistern yet. We have not done the second visit to Lanayru yet. And Eldin is supposed to be the last area you visit on sort of the second tier here. But that's not going to stop us. We're going to do an RBM here to open up the Eldin trial. And this is going to skip the entire second visit to Lanayru.
Yeah.
The whole thing. Sand Sea, Sand Ship, whole thing skipped. Again, thanks to one flag. Shows you the power of memory manipulation in games.
Yeah, so that was basically everything you saw in Lanayru's basically not existent anymore.
Yeah, to recap, the first Batro RBM skipped pretty much the entire first visit. The Song of the Hero skips the third visit. And this trick, this is going to be our second Batro RBM. This trick skips the second visit. And that pretty much sums up Lanayru.
Yeah. 3 RBMs, 3 skips.
So lepelog's got to be a little careful with his movement here, because if he moves the camera in the wrong direction, he's going to trigger the early life tree seedling cutscene, which actually warps Link to that spot in Back in Time and prevents us from leaving.
Yeah.
So that's essentially a soft lock, and he'd have to redo this whole RBM. He was able to avoid that, thankfully. And since we got those 5 gratitude crystals, Batro is going to give us some rewards. He doesn't care that we're in Back in Time.
Yeah.
But we do. We're going to use this flag here, and all we need to do is reload the area, and we'll see the Eldin trial waiting for us when we respawn. Picking up an extra bomb there, just in case. I'm pretty sure his bomb count should be fine for the rest of the run. I don't think he needs any additional ones.
Yeah, I didn't see how many he has. That should probably be fine. Alright, so now we've got the Eldin Silent Realm.
This is the longest Silent Realm, but it has a neat little side hop in the middle, which sort of skips you from the start to one of the later sections. We still want to avoid light fruits if we can, to avoid that cutscene. There's a couple light fruits here which are tricky to avoid, so we'll see how lepelog does. So Floha, what's your favorite trial in this game?
That is a good question. I would say my favorite trial is probably the Skyloft Silent Realm.
I do like the Skyloft Silent Realm. It's one of the most fun from a speedrunning standpoint because there's a couple neat tricks in it.
Yeah, just running through the waking water there. It's definitely a very fun experience. Making sure to not get seen by the watchers.
Yeah, some nice movement on the slopes there. This is the side hop I mentioned earlier. If you're at the right angle, you can land on this little platform here. This cycle is a little bit tricky to get through. He's going to wait. I think he probably would have got caught if he went for it, so I think it was a good decision to wait.
Alright, and here we've got the most difficult tier in the Silent Realm.
I don't know if
Because-
it's the most difficult, but it can be frustrating.
Yeah, because ropes in this game are very weird.
That tier definitely just dodged him.
Yeah.
Rope and vine physics are slightly odd in this game, so it can be annoying to get that tier. I'm still not sure I'd call it the hardest one. Oh, you got the light fruit there. That is unfortunate.
Yeah. Small cutscene there.
It's not a big deal, but
Yeah.
it's one of those things where when you get through the trial without it, you're like, yes.
Yeah. Now you don't need to avoid the other ones.
Yeah, the cutscene's a one-time only thing, so the other ones are no issue now. That one at the bottom of that rope is sometimes difficult to avoid. You have to be a little careful getting on the rope there. But there's another one coming up, which is also usually tricky. As we go back across this bone bridge up here, there's a light fruit right on the other side, and that can be tricky to avoid as well. Oh, that was going to be a bad cycle. He was going to get caught or jump in the lava, so he picked the lava.
Yeah.
The lava is less risky in a sense because you just respawn. If you get caught and get hit by one of the guardians, you have to do the whole trial again.
Yeah.
So
Also, you do not have any health in Silent Realms.
yeah, it's just a one-shot thing. That jump there is a little bit tricky. He ended up bonking on the opposite side of the bones. And we're heading up to get the tiers at the top here. Notice the little gates that sort of block you from different areas in the Silent Realms. If you can get on the side of those gates, it's possible to clip through their collision. However, none of the gates here in Elden are useful to clip through. There's one gate in all the Silent Realms which is actually useful to clip through, and that's in Skyloft Trial, which we're skipping entirely anyway.
I wonder what would happen if you just would clip out of the gate there at the top. You would probably just end out of bounds or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, that usually leads to Volcano Summit, but I doubt there's a loading zone there.
Yeah.
All right, one last tier at the bottom here, and Lepelog will be moving on to Volcano Summit, which is where our next crazy RBM trick is.
Yeah, because we didn't do enough crazy RBMs yet.
I mean, if you like RBM, Fire Sanctuary is the place for you.
Oh yeah, certainly.
I call it RBM Sanctuary because there's really very little fire in the dungeon and very much RBM.
That is certainly true.
Before we get there, though, we're going to have to get into Fire Sanctuary. If you remember casually, there are 3 different firewalls that block the way to the dungeon. The first 2 can be doused with a bottle of water, while as the third one, you're supposed to get the water basin from the water dragon and fly it with Scrapper all the way back, and then there's this whole escort thing that you have to do. As Ricky mentioned earlier, that stupid flying robot in Elden. We're going to skip all that. We actually need to skip 2 of the flame walls using RBM because the second one requires claw shots. And as you may have remembered, we just skipped the second visit to Lineru, including claw shots. So we're going to use 1 RBM to lower the second flame wall that normally requires claw shots. And we're going to use a second RBM to skip the third flame wall that's right at the dungeon entrance. That's called Water Basin Skip. The flag for Water Basin Skip is actually corresponds to a gratitude crystal on the Lumpy Pumpkin, which means we are going to need to try and make our way to the Lumpy Pumpkin at nighttime during Back in Time. Now, we can access the sky, so you might think, well, that's easy. We'll just go to the sky and fly there. But remember, there are boundaries in the Loftwing tutorial layer of the sky that prevent us from flying there directly.
Yeah, and the lumpy pumpkin, unfortunately, is not inside those boundaries.
It is, however, close enough that if we get enough height, we can actually jump off our bird at the top of the sky and sort of skydive our way to the lumpy pumpkin and kind of splat face down on it. So that might seem straightforward enough, but skydiving back in time is a little bit iffy. This lumpy pumpkin likes to go behind clouds, so it can be hard to see where you're going. But even worse than that is we don't have the ability to jump off our bird during back in time by default. So in order to gain that ability, we're going to have to actually land on the surface, go back to the sky from the surface, and then load a file before we get on our Loftwing that has the ability to dive off the bird. So we sort of bit magic the ability to jump off of our Loftwing into back in time, and then do this big skydive to land on the lumpy pumpkin. It's pretty wild. So let's see how Lepelog handles it. Again, we have to enter these different areas with the right file selected. Yeah, so if you are wondering how all of this was figured out, reverse bit magic was first found by Gymnast almost exactly a year ago, I think. We're coming up real close on the 1-year anniversary. And the first application he found of it was opening Earth Temple early, as I recall. So after he found it and announced it, there was a community effort to document as many scene flags as possible across the entire game to figure out what scene flags corresponded to which events, and thus what scene flags would be useful to RBM into our file. And so that was the beginning of a long journey to sort of find the things we can skip and the easiest way to skip them. Now, initially, we didn't have the ability to get to the sky during back in time. So we were restricted to flags that were available on Skyloft and back in time. And so while we could skip a lot of stuff, we couldn't yet skip Song of the Hero. But when we found the ability to get to the sky without crashing in back in time, and then also get to Farron, that's what opened up enough flags that we could do Song of the Hero skip. We can do the water basin skip that we're doing here. We can do the Ballad of the Goddess skip that we did earlier. There's a lot of different tricks which sort of require Farron back in time, and that's what truly broke the game. I think Lepelog's dive is looking pretty good here.
Yeah.
Yep, he's made it. So this particular flag for skipping the water basin, essentially opening the flame wall, opening the flame wall. He's having trouble opening the door here. There we go. Lowering the flame wall is a certain flag, and so we looked in other areas to find where that flag was. So one of them is this gratitude crystal here at the Lumpy Pumpkin. There's actually also the same flag associated with the Farron trial. I think Phi's introductory text for the Farron trial can also lower this flame wall. And that's the one we originally used until people figured out that it would be easier and faster to get to the Lumpy Pumpkin here. But yeah, it was a big community effort. Certainly Gymnast spearheaded it, but there are a lot of other people who have done a lot of work with it. And I would try to name them all, but I'm sure I'd forget some. So it was just a big community effort.
Yeah. In that case, shoutouts to the whole Skyward Sword community.
Yep. So
They're all some great people.
Yeah, definitely. It's a nice community to be a part of. Looks like he got the water basin skip just fine. Going to that sort of outside area committed the flag, so he's now officially skipped that part of it. There is one caveat as he does the second RBM here to lower the second flame wall. That flag that he set to lower the flame wall at the dungeon entrance will unset itself after we go through that area. And so when we go into Fire Sanctuary, we will no longer be able to leave through the front door because the flame wall will be back. So that means anytime we want to leave Fire Sanctuary, we actually have to use back in time to do so. Or I suppose we could fly to the sky from the overworld statue at the end, but... All right, so he's being careful with his camera here because, again, it's possible to trigger the Life Tree Seedling cutscene during Back in Time, and that's a soft lock. But he's triggered the correct cutscene,
Looks
so
like
he
you
should be good.
All
Just
right,
has to remember to get water.
Now he actually needs to commit a flag, though. That is done by bonking the wall. Which would spawn a fairy. We don't need that fairy, quite yet at least.
We don't want it quite yet because we want to still be low on health, because
Yeah.
as soon as we get into Fire Sanctuary, we have 3 more RBMs to do.
So yeah, important is you do not want to miss this. You do not want to miss the frog here when pouring the water.
Yeah, like I mentioned, the flame wall at the dungeon entrance is currently lowered, but if we leave the area and come back, it will be back again. So we need to sort of go through all 3 flame walls in one go here. So we use the water for the first one, the second RBM lowered the second one, and then we can get into the dungeon. It's not hard to hit that thing with the water, but if you miss it for some reason, you have to do the whole thing again.
Yeah.
I love how far away this Goron is talking to us about this.
He's
He's pretty much
pretty loud voice.
Gorko, the Goron, clearly doesn't understand RBM because he says he's clearly stumped as to how we're going to get into the dungeon, and clearly we're already in the dungeon, so...
Yeah. Anyways, time for RBM Sanctuary. So, our goal in here is to have a total of 4 RBMs. Yes, a total of 4 RBMs, which all do different things. What we want to do is, we want to RBM the Fire Sanctuary bird statue. We want to RBM the gates being down that block the way from the bird statue to the boss key room. We want to RBM the mini boss fight in the boss key room. And we also want to RBM the gates in the boss key room being down.
Yep, that's 4 flags total.
That's a total of 4 flags. Yeah.
We're going to do 3 here at the start, and the 4th one we'll save for later. That one he just did with the crystal is what gives us the bird statue that is at the end of Fire Sanctuary. Fire Sanctuary is the only dungeon which has a bird statue you can access from the sky. And that's the one that we just RBM'd in. Shooting the owl statue commits that flag, and we do the whole RBM thing again.
Yeah. The bird statue being accessible from outside certainly is an interesting concept. I'm wondering up to this day why they only used it once, or why they used it at all.
I think it's kind of I can see 2 reasons for it. I think one is kind of an aesthetic thing, because Fire Sanctuary is the only place that's sort of open to the sky. It's like at the top of a volcano, but it's open to the sky from the volcano. So you should be able to, in sort of a narrative sense, fly down into it. But also, it's the last dungeon, and so I think the game expects it to be the most challenging one for you. So having that bird statue at the end there that lets you fly to the sky gives you a nice quick shortcut back to the boss if you want to like go to Skyloft and get some potions or whatever.
Yeah, I guess.
I always thought it was kind of cool. Like, it was a
Yeah.
nice touch.
Definitely. I mean, Fire Sanctuary is probably the biggest dungeon, I would say.
Yeah, I think that's accurate.
Yeah, so just going all the way from the beginning to that bird statue already takes some time. So, yeah. I think it's definitely nice to have that.
So Lepelog's previous RBM was visiting the lower academy statue. This one's going to be the upper academy statue. One of these two lowers the gates leading to the boss key room. I don't actually remember which one. And the other one does one of the flags inside the boss key room itself. The two in the boss key room constitute what we call magma myths skip, which skips the need to acquire the magma myths from the dungeon. If you remember this casually, the magma myths are the main item in this dungeon. To commit this last RBM, Lepelog's going to come over here and dig up a fairy, and we're actually going to catch that fairy because we're about to do a trick which will deal a great amount of damage to us. And the fairy will help us survive it. Now, I mentioned earlier that that flame wall is now active at the front of Fire Sanctuary, so we can't leave in the normal way. So Lepelog's going to do a precise setup here to save in the correct coordinates. Looks like he's going to try it again. And if you save in the right coordinates here, we're going to use these coordinates to do a reverse bit warp into Ancient Cistern. We have to do back in time to leave the dungeon. If we didn't have to do that, we would probably just leave and fly back into the Fire Sanctuary here. But since we have to do it back in time anyway, we're going to combine it with a trick that we would need to do in back in time, and that's our trick to get into the Ancient Cistern.
That was also a nice example of how invincibility frames in this game work. That is totally right. Because usually you don't have any invincibility frames at all, but sometimes the game just thinks if you explode a bomb and then explode another bomb right away, then sometimes you don't get the damage from the second bomb, which is just very weird.
So the way reverse bit warps work, we saw one earlier with a cutscene, but that was kind of a special case. The way reverse bit warps work is we apply coordinates from our saved file to a new area that we enter during back in time. But we need to start our file as we're entering the area on which we want to apply the coordinates. So we said this was going to be a reverse bit warp to enter the Ancient Cistern. We want to apply our coordinates from Fire Sanctuary to the Ancient Cistern. That means we need to get to the Ancient Cistern during back in time. And so we're going to be flying to the surface here and running all the way through Farron Woods to Lake Floria. And then we're going to have to start our file at the right time as we enter Ancient Cistern. This is why we need the Water Dragon scale so that we can get to the Ancient Cistern during back in time. It's a pretty long back in time, so failing this particular trick can cost you several minutes.
Yeah.
That was, in fact, my downfall in this tournament. I failed this trick twice during my race with Chimera and ended up losing. And then I immediately routed it out of the English 1.0 route, so we don't even have to do that anymore. So most of this will look somewhat similar to the Farron RBMs you've seen before. There are a couple interesting points as we get closer to Lake Floria. Again, it matters what file we enter each area with. Gotta watch out for the Groose cutscene there. That was close. If he had entered that area with file 3 instead of file 1, he wouldn't have had to dodge Goose like that. So he's trying to do a little skip here to avoid the cutscene of the log getting pushed in, and there he goes. Now he's going to maneuver his way over to the Lake Floria entrance and use bit magic to lower a log. That will let him be able to sort of enter Lake Floria from the back entrance instead of the front entrance. He's got to also select file 3 here to avoid a phi text, which will crash. And now inside Lake Floria, he's going to load the Water Dragon scale into Back in Time by shooting the slingshot while file 1 is selected. Then he can swim over here and do a spin jump out to the dungeon, and he's got to start the file at exactly the right time, and that looked good. And then if he has the right coordinates, he's going to end up landing in poisoned water at the bottom. So he had a good coordinate set. The fairy revives him, and now he needs to get out of the poisoned water before his health runs out, which is not too bad. We're going to use a trick called brake sliding to make it a little bit easier. Brake sliding, if you hold essentially ESS position, which is very slightly down, and you hold Z, then you can keep your forward momentum without using stamina. So that was well done from Lepelog. The coordinates we pick land us in the basement so we can get the boss key right away. And now we're just going to have to go back and get the whip, and we'll be done with this dungeon. That particular reverse bit warp skips about 2/3 of this dungeon. You have to enter the statue here to reload the area that we...
You would take some time. You would take yourself some time here, then you would see how the Stealth Master would slowly descend there.
Yeah, there's usually a mini-boss fight on the lowest layer. But because we already lowered the statue, the bones for the Stall Master are just drifting down. That was a trick called a high flip. If you do a backflip at sort of the right moment, after doing a side hop, you get extra height from the backflip, and that's just enough to get up on the foot of that statue. And that's how we get back over to this this rope, since we still don't have the whip at this point in the dungeon.
Yeah. So now it is basically time to get the whip. But due to the statue being where it is right now, you've got a small problem. We could certainly enter the statue right now, which is usually just blocked by a key door. But unfortunately, that key door now is right in front of the whip, which means we need to get the key nonetheless.
Yeah, the doors leading into the statue don't actually move with the statue. So normally the statue itself is locked, but because we've lowered it, now it's the whip room that's locked. So we do need a small key. That's one of the things that Cistern Clip can skip. You can go out of bounds with Cistern Clip and get the whip directly without having to get this small key. But since Lepelog's running on the PAL version, he's going to need this small key to get into where the whip is. These spiders are really annoying.
Yeah.
Lepelog does want to maintain his health here. The fastest strat for the boss here, Koloktos, requires taking 2 hearts of damage. So he really doesn't want to get hit on the way there, because it will mean he either has to death warp to heal himself or do a slower strat.
That is where another thing comes now in mind. Because usually you would need to drop down to the whip now. But because we do not have the save cloth, we cannot cancel any fall damage. So what we are trying to do now is we are to just grab the ledge to not get any fall damage, but at the same time just hanging onto the ledge so that we actually can enter that ledge.
And that is not
So-
going to do it. So there's a specific set of hops you can do there, but Lepelog did not get the right set, so he's going to have to fight the mini-boss now. I think he's actually going to choose to Death Warp. He did save at the statue at the top of the rope, which is very important, because if he hadn't saved there, dying would have taken him all the way back to Fire Sanctuary.
Yeah.
And he would have had to do the entire reverse bit warp again. But because he saved at the top of the rope, he can Death Warp here safely and respawn there, and then try to get the jump onto the ledge again.
Well, now he doesn't even need to jump onto the ledge. Now he can just straight up
That's
jump
true.
onto the platform.
He
Because
has
now
extra health here.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
only
exactly.
want... Yeah. So you only want to go down one level. That's how you avoid the mini-boss fight. And even though that door to the whip doesn't look locked, it's actually locked on the other side, and it's still treated as locked. So you do need that small key, even though it doesn't look like it.
Yeah. That's just how locks work in this game. Actually locks the door from both sides.
It's actually quite impressive that Link is able to unlock the chains that are on the other side of the door.
Yeah, definitely.
He's a man of many talents. All right, so we've got the whip, we've got the boss key. There's nothing preventing us from finishing the dungeon, and so we're going to go fight Koloktos now. So as I mentioned before, the fastest strat involves taking 2 hearts of damage. That's because we're going to essentially take all of Koloktos' arms off, plant 2 bombs next to his weak point, and blow them both up by slashing them. Each bomb ends up dealing half the health that Koloktos has during the first phase. So normally that first phase is supposed to take sort of 2 rounds. He will sort of respawn his arms after you deal half of his damage to him. But by putting the 2 bombs down, we're able to deal all of the damage for his first phase at once and sort of skip the second round part of that. There's also a fast strat on the second phase, but I think I'll let you watch that first and then explain it, because it's pretty funny.
Yeah, the Koloktos boss fight is very interesting.
It's probably the longest fight casually, except for maybe Tantalus. Those 2 are both pretty long. And it used to be the longest fight in the speedrun because we didn't really have any good strats for it. And then SVA showed up, and he has like 3 different strats for this fight. There's the bomb strat we mentioned. There's the second phase strat that we'll see. He also made a strat for a bombless fight that also skips that sort of second round in the first phase. That one's a little slower than the fight with bombs, so that's probably what Lepelog's going to do, is the bomb version of the fight here. There is a little bit of randomness in here. Koloktos can do 2 attacks at this point. One of them is good, one of them is bad. He got the good one, so that's good.
So what you want to do is you actually want to, once Koloktos takes off his arms, you want to whip his, let's call it heart, so that he takes some time to prepare his next attack, which gives us enough time to place the bombs and to actually let them explode.
Yeah, that's a good point. The whip in the middle looks superfluous, but it's actually somehow manipulating his AI to do the longer attack, so we can get both of our bombs in. All right, second phase, we have giant swords that we're supposed to hit him with.
Yeah. What
Giant-
could possibly be stronger than this giant sword?
I mean, clearly Giant Sword would do the most damage, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Well, as you can see, he's got to back up a little. Got to back up. There we go.
Well, that's it. Guess the giant swords don't do that. Don't do that as much damage.
We have to use the Giant Sword to break the grating that's blocking his heart, but then 2 Skyward Strikes to the chest are enough to finish him off. As another fun fact, if you have the bow, which is normally in Sandship, so casually you'd never have the bow here, but the bow can also kill that phase of Koloktos in 2 hits with fully charged bow shots. The Sacred Bow, if I remember right, actually kills him in 1 hit with a fully charged shot. But that's not even done in 100%, so
Shame.
yeah.
There should be a
Can't-
special category for that.
You can't actually do it in 100% because you end up, if you do Sandship before Ancient Cistern, you end up locking yourself out of some songs.
There should be a special category just for one-shotting Koloktos with the Sacred Bow.
Well, you could try Reverse Dungeon Order, which isn't really a category, but it's a lot of fun to do. There's a lot of RBM in Reverse Dungeon Order, by the way. All right, so we're done with Ancient Cistern. We're heading onward to the second half of Fire Sanctuary. Since we got that overworld bird statue earlier, we're going to fly from here straight into the end of the dungeon. And that basically skips the entire dungeon except for that one last RBM that we mentioned before. We're going to be visiting the Bazaar statue to set the last flag that will let us get the mysterious crystals from behind and go straight in to challenge Girahim. And that's the last dungeon we're going to have to do, so we're getting fairly close to the end of the run here. We're finishing up Fire Sanctuary, and then we're going to go and fight in Prison 2. And then if all went well with Song of the Hero skip, which we're pretty sure it did, he'll be heading to the end game to fight Demise. So not too much left for lepelog here.
Yeah.
He's put together a pretty solid run here. Earth Temple was not kind to him. But
Yeah, Earth Temple was definitely not the best thing about this run.
Earth Temple's never kind, though. And he's done pretty well since then. It's been pretty solid. Another fun fact about this particular bird statue, if we had a way of reaching this statue after doing a particular bit warp, we could use the statue to return to the sky, and it would actually wrong warp us into the boss room. So if we could do that, we could avoid a lot of the RBMs that we have to do in this dungeon. But the statue's like just out of reach.
Yeah. As always in this game, it's one little thing.
Yeah, before Reverse Bit Magic, this game was remarkably unbroken. So we had a lot of things which were like, I think gymnasts called them elusive glitches, things which seem like they would be possible but are just out of reach. And we used to call that being Skyward Sworded.
Yeah.
Because the game just had a way of dangling these things right in front of you. And then Reverse Bit Magic was found, and things are a lot more broken. There are still a couple of things which are sort of just out of reach, but they're sort of not as major as they used to be.
Yeah.
All right, we pick up the ferry there so that we have a little extra health for the end game, because as soon as we leave here, we're going to a string of end game bosses that can deal a fair amount of damage.
Yeah.
Particularly the Horde fight at the end can be pretty scary on as low health as we're going to have. So the ferry is some nice insurance. It also commits the last RBM, so it doesn't really cost that much time to pick up.
Alright, fitting for the last dungeon, the boss key is simply a key.
I mean, it's a bunch of randomly shaped crystals that, if you look at it the right way, is a key.
Yeah.
Which is the whole point of these little boss key puzzles, right? You have to rotate them the right way. I think they were a nice little touch. Made it just slightly more interesting than, oh, I got a boss key, let's go in the door.
Yeah, definitely.
They can be pretty challenging, though.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes newer runners will have issues with them.
Yeah, if you don't know the exact rotation, then it can take some time.
Yeah. All right, so this Girahim fight, the first phase is pretty straightforward. In the second phase, we want to avoid attacks that give darts. Dart attacks essentially don't let us damage him.
Same.
The jumping attack is
already
fine.
goes for the same thing that applied to Girahim 1. Should we have fought him? Applies to Girahim 3, 2 as well. I'm
3,
getting ahead
actually.
of myself.
Even in the third Girahim fight, though, a standard third Girahim fight won't see darts at all. Like,
Yeah.
you have to make some significant mistakes in order to have darts appear there. That sort of triple dart attack that Girahim has can be one of the worst, because you have to sort of slash at him, and there's a chance that he'll transition into a jumping attack, but it's not definite. So when Lepelog is slashing there, he's trying to get him to do the jump, which he just did. And then you can hit him.
All right.
Got through that fight clean. Even though he has a fairy here, he doesn't want to take any damage because he wants to save that fairy for the end of the game, not use it up here. So it's good to get through that fight without taking damage. He's going to pick up the heart container here too to put him up at 7 hearts, since everything in the end game deals either 2 or 4 hearts of damage. Having 1 extra heart essentially translates to 1 extra hit you can take. So we'll have 7 hearts and 1 fairy for the end game.
All right. Now we're equipped for the end game. Now you could say we're actually ready for the end game. But there is one last thing that we still need to do before we approach the end game.
Yeah, so remember that flame wall that's at the front of Fire Sanctuary? It's still there. So we're going to need to activate back in time to get out of this dungeon. But we're going to need to save at the prompt first. So saving is good, because if you don't save there, you have to do that whole second half of the dungeon over again. He's going to need to use his fairy here so that he can die on the firewall. And then we're going to use back in time to start the Imp 2 fight a little bit quicker. We're going to essentially RBM the story flag for that fight onto our file, so that we can skip some of the text that's associated to it. This is going to be our last RBM of the run, and in fact our last back in time trick of the run.
Yeah.
So enjoy your last 3 minutes on the title screen.
Yeah. Appreciate the music. That also means that approaching the end of this run also means that we are approaching the grand finale of the Skyward Sword any percent tournament.
Just under 18 minutes left.
So that is definitely gonna be interesting. I think this has never been done before, so I hope you are looking forward to the grand finale of lepelog versus KitKat in the first Skyward Sword any percent tournament.
Yeah, we are excited to see that race. It will be restreamed on one of these ZSR channels near you, so do keep an eye out for that, hopefully in the near future. It's been an entertaining tournament so far, so I'm hoping for an exciting finale.
Certainly.
KitKat, I would say, is probably the favorite. He uses the faster Japanese version, and he's gotten some pretty good PBs lately. I think he's down to 213 something for his
Yeah.
PB now. But we've seen stranger things in this tournament, so lepelog
Yeah,
certainly has a
everything can
chance.
happen. I don't think lepelog gave up on his revenge arc.
No. He will have another shot at KitKat, but he is going to have to reverse the bracket, so it will be difficult, but certainly possible.
Yeah, definitely.
Welcome to everyone from Zelda Speedruns 3. You're just in time for the finish of this any percent race. Lepelog's got to be a little careful with his files here, because otherwise he can freeze his console.
Yeah.
He's able to successfully get into the sealed temple.
Yes. Unfortunately, this is not a race anymore. Deesh already forfeited some time ago. So now it's all up to lepelog to finish and to claim his spot in the grand finale of the Skyward Sword any percent tournament.
So if he starts this file at the right time, he'll be able to start the Imprisoned 2 fight from outside. He saved his file there, so he'll spawn in the sealed grounds when he starts up here. That looks like a safety save to me.
I mean, hey, that's faster. Wait.
Now he's going to take a little bit of damage jumping down here, but the side hop here should save 2 hearts for him.
Yes.
And that's important going into the end game, like we mentioned.
Yeah, in the end game, every heart matters, basically.
Actually be a little faster.
The Imprisoned 2 fight is pretty difficult. You want to try and get up on his head right away here by slashing his fingers at the right time. If you're able to get up on his head, then you can do a jump slash strat here to cancel the cutscene that you're seeing now. He missed the jump slash, so he's getting thrown off of his head. If you jump slash at the right time in the right place, the game will treat Link like he's in the air, and it will cancel that animation where he gets thrown off the imprisoned, and you're able to essentially chain all the hits right on top of him. Unfortunately, failing that strat is a significant time loss. He's going to lose between 40 seconds and a minute, depending on how well he's able to recover it.
Yeah. Now, first off, however, you get this nice little cutscene of the imprisoned wanting
Do you still have plenty of room
to
for PB?
well,
Because my
He wants to join us.
was horrid, and so was
Yeah.
the entire my split.
However, we don't really want that, so we gotta push him back.
It's 3 sets of hits to take down the imprisoned, so if he's able to get back on the head here and get the jump slash strat the second time, he'll be able to skip the second part of the fight. Being careful.
Alright.
You got it that time.
Alright. Second time, you've got less time for the jump slash, but you got it nonetheless. Alright, and the third time, you don't need the jump slash anymore.
You
just
do
need
have
to-
to be fast, though, the third time, because once he
Yeah.
gets to this sort of third phase, he will shake you off very quickly. So I got a little concerned because he hit the spike from the side for the last hit, but he was able to recover soon enough.
You got the second jump slash?
Yeah.
Not bad, not bad.
All right, so now we just have the Horde, Girahim 3, and Demise standing between Lepelog and Grand Finals.
Dang it. So at least you got the one.
And some cutscenes.
Yeah, who doesn't like them? Who doesn't like some cutscenes?
To be fair, I think this game does a good job with its storytelling, and a lot of that is done through cutscenes. Like, I think there's some pretty good cutscenes in the game.
Oh, definitely.
Just got screwed over
Certainly,
by
they're unfortunate from a
the
speedrunning
trial.
standpoint, but
Yeah.
Not play this game today.
so am I the only one who, when you put the ceiling spike in here, does the same sword motions with the Wiimote that Link does?
No, you're actually not.
I still do that. It's been almost 10 years since this game came out, but
Yeah.
it's just so satisfying,
Yes.
especially after a good fight.
Oh yeah, certainly. Just like when you pick up the sword from the stone in the beginning.
Mhm.
Just putting this stone back in. It's a feeling. Also, fun fact, if you realized, while we did the 2 triangles there, or the hourglass motion, on the floor you can still see the one triangle seal.
Yeah, that's because we skipped the Imprisoned 1 fight. All right, so we're heading to the end here. If everything goes well in the end game, we're looking at around a 2:36 or 2:37 as a final time, which is pretty good in a race context. Pretty solid run.
Definitely.
We're about to find out if Song of the Hero skip worked. We're pretty sure it did, but we're going to be going to the past here, picking up the True Master Sword, and then trying to leave through the door at the front. And if the door doesn't open, something went wrong with Song of the Hero skip, and he'll have to redo it. But I think he'll be fine.
Yeah.
So this is why we needed the Gate of Time earlier. We need to be able to go through it at this point to the past to access the door to the endgame bosses. And so that's why we need to go through the trouble of raising it during Back in Time. All right, here's the True Master Sword. This is probably my favorite cutscene in the game, and of course we're going to skip it because it's about 6 minutes and 45 seconds on the English text version.
Taking
Uplogs.
parts of damage back.
Yep, we're going to heal up just to be safe. No reason to be risky here. He's just got to finish.
All right,
And
now it's time for the horde fight.
his Song of the Hero skip was successful.
All right. Also, fun fact, what you did not see there, if we were not on hero mode right now, the game would stop. Because the cutscene would not advance.
What strat do you do for horde skip? Do you like just do your
It
own?
would just
Yep.
stand still there.
So the normal mode any percent route actually does a completely different route that skips the Harp and Ancient Cistern, but does Skykeep. So it's actually really interesting to see how much difference there is between those two routes.
Alright. Gotta be careful to not take too much damage there.
It's according to the cutscene. You just
Yeah, this first one is you have to kill the blue Bokoblins, the Bokoblins with the blue hats,
the shield is
and you just want to try and avoid as much damage as possible.
Yeah.
once it is,
The second barrier,
hold on.
Usually the horde fight is not that complicated anymore.
And A to sprint.
Of course, there are some time saves here, and if you're very unlucky, it can happen that you actually die to the horde fight.
that was a
he
very
gets-
smooth horde skip.
The horde skip,
I've used
nice.
it like 2 or 3 times.
By running into that cutscene at the right place, you can get that moblin to spawn in the corner there. And then by running up his shield at the right angle, you can jump over the interior wall, and that skips a good segment of the fight. You skip having to deal with the moblins at the second barrier, but you also skip having to do the barrier after that with a blue Bokoblin, which has a ton of health.
Oh,
You can see how easy it is to take a lot of damage quickly
yeah,
here.
he took some unnecessary damage there.
And if you do get horde skip, you always take 2 hearts of fall damage from it, so you have a limited amount of health to work with.
All right,
And
these
these
snipers
archers
here.
at the end, that was some
he
good
does
dodging there.
nice.
Far from me, and I have I like massively.
It's not easy to avoid them.
He's doing just fine, I think.
Low success rate
as long as you get through the horde, even if you die after that, you'll respawn at the beginning of the fight you're on. So the horde is the one that takes the longest amount of time. It's the one you really don't want to die in.
And
You
this
obviously
last thing, this last horde, this last area of the horde fight is just nothing.
not too threatening.
Yeah.
Obviously, you don't want to die in any fight, but he's gotten through the scary part. So we're on track for a pretty decent finish.
Alright, time for Girahim 3.
Girahim 3 has one weak spot on his chest, and you need to knock him off. He's playing the harp for him. That's nice. Nice little bit of swag there from lepelog.
Yeah, gotta get all the swag in.
So you knock him down 3 times, you stab him 3 times. That transitions to the second phase, where he has a small sword. You got to knock that sword out of his hands to stab him in the chest again. Then when that doesn't work, Girahim's like, all right, I'll use a bigger sword. And you got to break through that sword to hit him in the chest 2 more times. And that's the end of the fight. So we're transitioning to the second phase here. This is the trickiest phase to do without a shield. The Girahim 3 fight is the other fight where it'd be really useful to have a shield. But it's basically this fight and the Stalfos fight in Skyview, so most people skip it.
Alright.
So you hit him with the Skyward Stab once, you stab him a few times, then you re-stun him with the second Skyward Stab, and that was very well done. You wretched brat from Girahim. He's not very happy.
Yeah. Good old English text.
Well,
We actually get the wretched brat text.
We got an unwanted stab in there. So he's... There we go. Wasn't too bad.
Oops. That did not work as intended. Nonetheless.
He's a little bit sketchy, but he got through it just fine. He's got a chance at a high 236 with a good a good Demise fight at the end here. Demise is also slightly trickier without a shield, but if you practice the strat, it's not too bad. We're almost to the end here. Let's give lepelog some support as he finishes up this run and heads into grand finals.
Yes.
So first phase, you want to try and combo him. He's having trouble getting the combo started here. All right, he's in the combo now. He's going to be blocked.
Now he's getting the stun lock. All right, there we go.
When he blocks your attack, you can do a backflip and then swing the Wiimote during the backflip to do a jump slash right away, and that continues the combo. This particular one here, there's a couple different strats you can use. He's going to backflip a few times and then dodge this attack, and then he can continue the stun lock here. That's well done. Charge up a lightning strike. Stun him one more time, and you can knock him down and put it in the books. lepelog is on the grand finals.
GG.
You done?
And he did get that high 236. Nice job to lepelog. We'll see if we can maybe get him in here to talk about the run a little bit.
Maybe Deesh as well.
Last I heard. Oh, here he is. It's Deesh. Welcome.
Oh, Deesh is
Hi.
there as well. Oh, hey.
Hi. Is that a 236?
Welcome, lepelog. GG.
Hi.
Thanks. I hate this
GG,
tournament.
and congratulations for moving on into the grand finale. Time for your redemption arc.
Yeah, sure.
You get a second shot at KitKat here.
All I can hope for is that I can improve my PV. Be my goal.
That was a PB.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Always
nice.
trashed, so.
Every run's trash, don't worry. Especially the ones that don't finish.
Yeah, so
I'm still sorry. That's so dumb.
Yeah, that is really. I don't think that ever happened to me yet. But
So,
that is
Really?
something.
I think you have done every dumb mistake in Skyward Sword.
Yeah. Who hasn't done dumb mistakes in this game yet?
my favorite dumb mistake that I've made is during a 100% run when you do the 8 boss rush fights to get the Hylian shield. You have to stop
no.
after 8 fights, and I kept going to the 9th fight.
Oh no!
Oh no!
And you lose all that. You have to stop and redo the whole thing. It was awful. So that's the one that I've done.
Oh no!
And yeah, we've all done something like that before.
That's an interesting one.
Yeah.
That's a heartbreaker because it's 7 hours into a run. And you
Yeah.
just
I
lost.
almost died at the very end of in my 100% run. I got Horde as my 8th fight, and
Oh,
I
that's
finished it with 2
terrifying.
hearts. I finished it with 2
terrifying.
hearts.
Oh.
It was absolutely horrifying.
So do you have any thoughts about your run, Lepelog? Any particular points that stood out?
I'm sorry that you had to watch Earth Temple, but
Free time save.
yeah,
we're,
sure.
Yeah.
we're all sorry we have to watch Earth Temple every time we run.
Yeah. Yeah. Earth Temple is just the worst dungeon in the game.
I mean, I'm
Somehow
just got system reverse bit warp first try.
Yeah.
That's always like the part I'm the most scared about.
Really, everything after Earth Temple was pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, trials were a bit sloppy, but
Trials are
Oh,
always sloppy. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
So, what's your plan of attack against Kitcott in Grand Finals here?
playing as good as I can and try to get a PB and then congratulate him for being the best one.
All right, well, I think that wraps us up here.
Yeah.
Sorry to you, Deesh. You're now out of the tournament, but you had a very good showing, taking top 3. So
Third.
congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Yeah. GG
No, I don't
on
have
the
to worry about
bronze
this
medal.
category.
GG on the bronze medal for the tournament.
Yeah,
Still
and
happy with that,
Lepelog,
though.
Lepelog, good luck in the next round.
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks.
Good luck against Kit
I will
Kat.
need it.
Yeah, I think we're done here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alright then. Thank you, Deesh and Lepelog, for the awesome race. Very sorry, Deesh, about the back in time shenanigans. Thank you, Froha258 and Indy Kenobi, for the awesome commentary. That's it for Zelda Speedruns for today, but tomorrow we have the Minish Cap Randomizer Tournament race between Dragon C0 versus Carson777. That's going to be at 3 p.m. And right now, we're going to go ahead and race